In a previous demonstration, you may have seen the alert functionality, which is part of SAP Business One that will tell you when a certain situation has taken place. For example, when somebody has sold a product below a certain profit margin. But the trouble with that is the sale has already been made, the problem has already been incurred. What if you want to stop that from happening? Well, that's where the authorizations functionality in SAP Business One kicks in. So I'm going to show you how we can trap those transactions where somebody goes to put out a sales quotation, for example, where the profit margin is less than 10%. So in order to do this, we need to go into our approval procedures. Now, the first step in any approval procedure is to configure the approval stages. So in this case, we can create some stages, or we might have some stages already in here. So for example, here's a stage called inventory, and this is when I need to do a goods issue. And this is going to go to two different authorizers. It's going to go to Bob Schoen in production and Linda Hudson in production. And we can set the system up so that there's only one approval required, or if it's going to be rejected, two people need to reject it, or the other way around. It needs two approvals, but only one rejection is required. So again, you've got that total flexibility there. Let's take a look and see if we've got any others in the system. No, we haven't. Now remember, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create an approval process for if the gross profit was below a certain percentage. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'm going to call this stage profit check. And I'll give it a name, profit percentage check. And I'm going to say, well, for this, actually only one approval is required and one rejection is required. And who does it have to go to? Well, I'm going to say this needs to go to my approver, which is Richard Duffy. So that's me. Now, when I go through and do this, I can't approve my own documents, so I'm going to start up a second session, log on as a different user, and run this process, but then the approval request will come to me. So that's going to come to me, so I say add, that's now done. The next step is to create our approval template. And I'm going to call this, again, my approval template is my profit check. Again, profit check. And now I can say, all right, do I want this approval check to run for all people when they're entering transactions, or do I only want this to apply to certain people? Well, in this case, I'm going to say when my user, Sophie Clog, goes in and she enters a transaction, she's in the sales department, when Sophie Clog enters one of these documents, when she enters a sales quotation or a sales order, I'm going to send it to my approval stage, and the approval stage that I just set up, remember, was my profit check. So I'm going to send this to a profit check, and now I'm going to say, when do I want this to happen? Do I want it to happen every time Sophie enters a document? For example, if she's a new employee, I want to check everything she does for a little while, or only when the following situation occurs. And you can see I have some predefined scenarios, if you like. So I can say where the gross profit is less than or equal to, and then I can go across here and put in the value less than or equal to 10%. All right? Now I don't have to put in its percentage because it already knows that this is a percentage type. And then I can say here add, and that's now done. Now I've got my template set up, I'm ready to go. So what's going to happen? Well, fundamentally, Sophie's going to enter a transaction now. She's going to put through that transaction for a gross profit of less than 10%, and we'll see what happens. In order for that to work though, we're going to have to log in as Sophie. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to log into the system again, and this time I'm going to log in as Sophie. So now I'm logged in as Sophie, and you can tell Sophie's got a slightly different look and feel to her SAP Business One environment. But I'm going to go in now and I'm going to enter a sales order. I'm going to use my same customer. In this case, it's going to be Earthshaker. So I'll select them, and I'm going to put in a delivery date of today, and we're going to sell them some printers again. This time I'm just going to sell them one printer. So one printer at $500. Well, in this case, I've actually decided that I want to give them a special price. I want to sell it to them for $390. And so I'll now say add. And you'll see the system has now determined that a workflow has been triggered, and it's the profit check workflow that I just set up. I'm going to send a message to the approver. Please approve, as this is an internal use order. Maybe I'm selling it to the customer, it's for their own internal use, not for resale to somebody else, for example. So I'll say OK. Now if I quickly go across here, and we'll give this a couple of seconds, you saw then it just popped in. There's the request for document approval. So I can go in here. There's my request for document approval. It's come from Sophie. She's saying, please approve, as this is an internal use order. Let's go and have a quick look at the transaction. There's the request for approval header. I can click here and I can open up that actual transaction and look at it in detail. There it is, it's $390. Let's right click on there and say, look at our gross profit. So our gross profit is actually only $10.44. Well, she said it's for an internal use only order. That's in line with our company policy. So I'll say OK to that. We'll close that down because I'm happy with that. And then I will now go ahead and say my answer, my decision is it's approved. And my remarks will be go ahead. And I'll say update and OK. That's now done. If I go back here as Sophie, one of the things that you will see will happen is we will get a screen pop that will come up and tell Sophie that that is ready to go. But if she doesn't see the screen pop, if she's not in front of the computer at the time, she can always go into her messages and alerts overview, and she'll be able to see any of those alerts that come through and let her know that she's okay to go ahead and process that order. So you can now see that Sophie's just got that screen pop that her document generation is approved. She can select that. There's the document. One click opens up the document. Now what she's able to do with that document, she can see the approval status report. So she can see as it went through the approval process, it was triggered onto a profit check. It was approved by Richard Duffy. He gave it the go-ahead. So she can say OK. And now she can simply click on Add. And our sales order is now approved and continues on through the process. So that's how the approvals process works in SAP Business One.